And Chris Medland, as Bob Varsha likes to say. We're going to have to get a new voiceover for the beginning of the show.
He's the star of the show, and you leave him out.
Casey did it. It's Casey's fault.
Blake. Oh, great. Now you're going to take it. That's our second star. Wow, good start to the show, buddy.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Speed City's coverage of the Belgian Grand Prix. This is Jon Massengale. That was Jonathan Green, and Bob Varsha is joining us from his megaplex in Atlanta, his studio high in the sky. How are you, Mr. Varsha?
I'm doing great. I don't know about megaplexes. My son came to town on a surprise visit last night. He's on the couch out in front with the.
Well, we want his opinions then, Bob.
Yeah, right now it sounds a lot like snoring.
Okay.
I have a child that's about to go to college that's sleeping at home as well too. But guys, we have a very interesting show to talk about because there's lots went on yesterday. We have a Ferrari on pole. He may have inherited it from Max Verstappen because of a grid penalty, but we have a Ferrari on pole, which we haven't had recently. I haven't looked, Bob. You may know the answer to that question, but Ferrari hasn't won a race and hasn't looked good. Haven't run a race since Monaco, since Leclerc did. And have not looked great. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it ought to be interesting there. And look, it's Spa, right? So it's everybody's favorite. We had lots of rain yesterday, and we haven't got Chris connected yet. But I don't know what the weather's going to look like. But it was predicted to be dry. But Chris will tell us here shortly.
Yeah.
But what are you looking forward to, Bob?
Well, like you say, this is my personal favorite track. It's going to be an interesting race. Remember, they repaved the entire length of the thing. They have had racing. They had the SRO Spa 24 Hours, which is a terrific race.
Yep.
The on and off rain, has washed away the accumulated rubber. So you've got a very interesting question for all of the engineers to solve over in the pit lane. I noticed the Alpine team has split their setups between Ocon and Gasly, and I think that's a smart move, because nobody knows what's going to happen today. I mean, you can have a rock solid 100%, here's what's going to happen weather forecast at Spa, and then get something entirely different when the race rolls around. So love the track, love the location. And I think it'll be a good race. There were some gaps that were a little disturbing in qualifying. I mean, Verstappen, quicker than anybody by the better part of half a second or more.
0.6. Yeah.
So, in theory, he would run away, which he might do, except for the fact that he's going to start 11th after making some power unit changes. And so we'll get to watch him come through the field. Right now, I guess the betting is how fast will Verstappen come through. And Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton, in particular, think he's going to be coming through pretty quickly.
Yeah, didn't he do it a few years ago from 14th?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Aha.
Yeah,
he did. There's
a lot of weirdness about this race. I mean, this is the third year in a row that Verstappen has been quickest to qualifying, but won't start on pole because he made power unit changes, and the pole then went to a Ferrari.
Well, speaking of a lot of weirdness, I hear Chris Medland connected. Mr. Medland, how are you, buddy?
Oh, nice.
Nice segue. He's just using you as a pundit for his jokes.
I'll take it. Seeing as I'm always late to start the show, I can't really complain, can I? But I was listening to everything you guys were saying and totally agreed. But we've had some quite interesting discussions over the last 24 hours, actually, with team members here.
Oh.
And there seems to be a bit of consensus that in the dry, the McLaren will be very competitive, but also 2 sets of tires, and that essentially he's kind of with the weather and his term.
We're losing you, buddy. You're gonna have to.
It must be Chris. We get every third word.
Oh, are we in one of those modes again?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sounds like it.
My apologies, everyone. I've just come out onto the grid before it got busy as well, hoping it would be good for us. But I'll blame all these fans in the grandstand who've got gorgeous sunshine for once.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you sound good.
For them.
You sound good again.
Get those pasty Europeans out there.
Yeah.
Boy, they deserve it after yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah, Bob is jealous, Chris, because we're having barbecue. Jonathan and I are having barbecue for breakfast in the studio, and he said, "Man, that sounds good." Well, I said, "Hey, man, it's Texas. We know how to start the day."
Yeah, well, I just ordered out for French fries with mayonnaise, so I'm going the whole Belgian thing today.
Ah, voilà.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah,
Very much on brand.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, Chris, maybe let's try it again. What were you saying about the conversations overnight? You said McLaren, is predicted to be fast in the dry, but what else were you saying?
Yes, so essentially that the race pace in these conditions should be much better for McLaren, and that Max Verstappen he went higher downforce because he wants to look after his tyres, and therefore that helped him in the wet because higher downforce was going to be an advantage. So he thinks that led to a bigger advantage in qualifying than realistically exists. But also, one of the reasons he wants to look after his tyres is the approach that Red Bull have gone with strategy is he only has one set of hard compound tyres for this race. Most others have two, and Pirelli's optimal strategy is to two-stop with two sets of hard tyres. And speaking to both Red Bull and McLaren, they think that will be a big factor, and that McLaren have the upper hand there and are in better shape. So as much as you tend to hear sort of Red Bull want to talk down their chances, and then you think maybe McLaren will talk up Red Bull's chances, actually, the way they've been talking so far is that McLaren seem pretty confident that as long as they can get to the front quickly, and Perez is the issue, I think, mainly for them, then they reckon that they can get away far enough that Verstappen doesn't become a factor.
Well, you know what? Max Verstappen agrees with you, and let's hear from Mr. Verstappen right now.
Yeah, session was good. I mean, we didn't really change anything on the car, just following the conditions. I think that was more important. So it was a very positive day for us. Of course, I know it's not how it is going to be tomorrow. So yeah, we optimized everything from our side for tomorrow. I hope the tires are gonna hold up, and then hopefully at least we can fight with Ferrari and Mercedes. McLaren, I don't know, they might be a little bit out of reach, but we'll find out tomorrow.
Yeah, you touched on it there. I mean, what can we expect from you tomorrow? And you've done it before from P14 on the grid in 2022, so can you do it again?
I mean, we live in a bit of a different world now. You know, there are a lot more competitive cars up at the front, so I don't think it's that straightforward for me. But yeah, hopefully we can just have a strong race and have a bit of fun out there.
Have a bit of fun out there coming back from 11th. There you go, Chris. He said it, though. He said the McLaren's maybe out of reach.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to hear that approach from him because he's normally pretty honest, I think. He would say, yes, I can win this race from there, or no, I can't. So he really does believe it's going to be tough for him. And, you know, we've got to look at the trend has been. But even in qualifying, when we've seen Verstappen look very strong this season, certainly in the last, 6-7 races, and even looking good at the start of races and in the early parts of stints, it seems to be as the race goes on, McLaren comes back at him or get really in the frame. So Sundays have been closer, even if Saturdays haven't been that close. And I think we can't really ignore that ahead of today.
Yeah, Greeny, what do you think?
Hey, Chris, I have a question. Well, I want to ask Chris about
Yeah.
this story that the Verstappen side of the garage was called together, at least the top guys, for a clear the air meeting, particularly between Verstappen and his race engineer, Giampiero Lambiasi. You know, we've heard them exchange harsh words over the radio recently. Hungary was really nasty. And then they come out and say, okay, that was heat of battle. We love each other. That's just the way we talk because we've been together so long, yada, yada, yada. But now apparently Christian Horner and the leadership on the team apparently thought, you know, we need to get together and talk this out. So that tells you that there's something more going on. And today, on a day when those pit calls, particularly with regard to the fact they only have that one set of hard tires, are going to be really critical. What's going on over there in Verstappen's garage, Chris?
Yeah, I don't know how they organized it in terms of when they wanted to have the meeting, but I know that GP and Max had a pretty animated chat out the back of their garages and the engineering trucks. So on the top level of the Spa paddock, so funnily enough, near the media center, where people could see them having it. And they weren't bothered that people could see. And they were both, you know, pretty animated, gesturing a lot. And that was, I think, their clear of the air moment. But where it was taking place suggested it had organically happened. But it was quite evident after Sunday as well that Christian Horner sort of suggested that they might have to talk it out. You know, I don't think he was overly upset with the way GP handled things, but that he felt, okay, that was a bit more than their usual back and forth. There was a little bit of needle in there that might need just a smoothing over. But Max was calm about it on Thursday when we did the media sessions, and he said that we're honest and we're blunt and we'll be fine. But he admitted then that they hadn't yet spoken, and not in the sense of we're not talking to each other, but they hadn't had a clear the air thing on Sunday night, and then had not been in the same place until coming here on Thursday. So it did linger for a little bit. I would say, though, that the atmosphere actually at Red Bull right now looks very good on that side of the garage. So Jos Verstappen is here, and I saw him having quite a friendly chat with Christian Horner yesterday before I spoke to him on our live show. They were kind of smiling and joking a bit and looked very relaxed. We also saw Christian with Helmut Marko and Max and GP in the garage during qualifying, didn't we? Having a bit of a laugh and a joke. I think they look like they've kind of settled things down right now anyway. But admittedly, if you listen to GP's radio messages yesterday, he seemed to be very particular with how clear and concise he was being. And someone likened it to a married couple after an argument.
Yeah.
And then trying to make sure that no one says the wrong thing. So they're both like being very, very clear with everything that they say and do. And I do think it was a little bit like that. So as you say, actually, Bob, in the pressure of the moment now, when we go racing, it'll be really interesting to see how they handle it, if they have some tough moments and whether cracks start to appear more quickly than normal.
Yeah, Chris, I've got a double spa dare for you. Go and talk to Jos and find out what's really going on. Because listening to Checkered Flag the other day, the theory is, certainly Buxton was saying this, that the only time that Mr. Verstappen gets really animated, really upset, really just furious is when Jos is there. And he's only been there 3 times, and this is the 3rd. So it's almost equated to his father riling him up, which given what happened last time in Austria with Christian and so on about driving the car, there's definitely some needle there between Christian and Jos, and I think it does have a bearing on how Max feels about the whole thing. And my theory is that Max is trying to rally the team to say, hey guys, we're going to lose this championship unless we do better, and that's just his way. We have a good vociferous Dutch fan who reminds us that it's his, that's the way that the Dutch are, and love me, like it or love me, that's the way I am. I'm straightforward, and Max has said this, and so there's a lot of that theory that Max is kind of leading this by his agitation.
Potentially, yeah. I think you can see when his fuse is a bit short, but I think it's actually as well because of the way that Red Bull have slipped back in competitiveness and kind of having some chats this weekend again. There seems to be a feeling in some of their rival teams. Certainly, McLaren has had really good development, but they've actually not brought new parts as quickly to the car this year as they'd intended because they're not fully certain in how they're going to perform. And they've seen lots of other teams bring parts and not get what they thought they were going to get out of them. And one of those is Red Bull. They said they actually think Red Bull have barely improved their car in terms of lap time from the start of the season. And it's something kind of very early on, like from Japan onwards, they started saying, okay, they're not quite getting things working in the way that they had before. They might even be reaching the limits of the kind of development cycle that we've got with these cars. They're so complex with the flaws. And based on that, then I think Max's frustration starts to grow that it was almost an inevitable slide in terms, I say backwards, but they're just, if you're standing still in Formula One, you're going backwards. It's the old adage, isn't it? And it was an inevitable slide backwards to that chasing pack. So I can also understand that. He probably started the year in this mindset of, okay, screw what's going on off track. I'm going to win another championship. This is a good place to be. I'm going to be a full-time world champion. It's going to be a nice season.
Well, he knows the window, doesn't he? He knows that things are changing.
Big time. And very quickly, there's even a chance he doesn't win this year's title, let alone then next year's. And who knows by 26. So you could actually be watching him completely lose his grip on success. And it's must be tough to handle.
And in that respect,
especially.
Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, they've had so much success. They've had such a superior car and operation for so long. It wouldn't surprise me a bit if we found out after the fact that there were problems previously during the 3 world championships that Max and the team won. But the car was so good and Max was so good, they managed to work around those things, and now, as you say, with the chasing pack drawing ever closer, suddenly that pressure ratchets up. You had Checo's problems staying toward the front of the grid. Interesting chemistry situation there. And now that you've got Checo up in P2 for the start of today's race. Is that going to relieve that pressure in any way?
Well, maybe it will if he actually converts from there. But I think that's also another thing. We've got to have to wait and see how he handles that situation, because this isn't like the past. To be fair to Checo, this isn't a time when he's got a car that is a second a lap quicker than everyone and he should disappear into the distance. He's got a fight on his hands with the cars around him. Certainly the cars directly behind him. And as much as it tends to be the car in second that gets a slipstream from the car in the lead and maybe take the lead at the start, I remember being here about, I think 7 years ago, when the two Racing Point drivers had started on the second row. There was a 4 wide moment heading up to Les Combes. So out of Eau Rouge, Radion, they're going down that Kemmel straight, and they went 4 wide because the front two, like the car in second, got slipstream from the car in first, pulled out. Then the two behind got slipstreams each from the two cars side by side in front. So they then caught up, and they were 4 wide into the next corner. There's every chance that the guys on the front row today are not leading. Neither of them are leading at the end of the first lap.
Wow.
That's crazy to think about. All right, guys, we got a Jonathan. I know you have a thought you want to get in, but we got to wait for a quick break, and then we will get your thoughts back after these messages. No. All right, let's see if anybody is awake this morning. TW was here right off the bat. Right off the bat, yeah.
Yeah, he's living the dream.
Joe Varsha is getting his chores done. He's going to come over to my house after that and finish mine. And Mike Bowles. Good morning, Mr. Mike. How are you, buddy? Corvette Mike, I think, is Mike Bowles, if I'm not mistaken. Wonder where Mike is. Wonder where he's traveling today.
That could be a competition.
On the road
Where's Mike Corvette today?
Man, speaking of Corvette, did you guys see the new ZR1? 1,064 horsepower. Beats anything from Europe.
You're going to need truck tires to get that.
That is a mind-blowing number for a factory car.
It is.
The first headline I saw was, should this be illegal? I'm like, well, wait a minute. The Rimac Nevera's got 2,000 horsepower. Every Bugatti's got 1,000 plus.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is a...
Yeah, but those cars all cost millions of dollars. The Corvette,
I know,
is a very low 6-figure car. I mean, you can get 1,000 horsepower
Not this one.
Corvette for 150 grand.
This one will probably push 200, believe it or not.
Wow.
The ZR1.
Well,
yeah.
200 will get you a 10-year-old Ferrari 458.
I know. You're absolutely right. I mean, even at 200, that seems insane to say.
I bet Bowles is somewhere like El Paso, Texas.
Shut up. I just was looking. That's what he said. He's not too
Hopefully
far then.
Somewhere.
Oh, my God. Brundle's going to drive his old car.
He's only halfway across Texas. It's not that far. It's only like 14-hour drive.
Look at that.
What is that? Who was that?
It looks like an Arrows.
Oh, yeah. What year is this?
A long time ago.
90s?
It was an Arrows. Yeah.
Is it a footwork car?
Yeah.
Chris, where are you? Are you able to see the television broadcast?
No, but he knows he's out there.
No.
That's Thierry Boutsen.
Well, no, so this is old footage.
Yeah.
Filmed from earlier in the weekend. I can't see it now at the moment. They're just the grid's about to open here. But I know from certain people that work at Sky Television. What product was
Certain
driving.
people. That's no way to talk about a lovely lady like that.
All right, coming back.
Hi guys, this is Pierre Gasly and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Yeah, Pierre Gasly. I thought of him and the Antoine Hubert photos that he always puts out every year. But Jonathan, you had something you wanted to say.
Chris, you're the man on the button, and there's a lot of stuff out there in terms of we're 1,000 miles away or 5,000 miles away. But, could this lead to potentially the rumor that Verstappen's frustration could lead to potentially a hop out of the car and a hop over to Mercedes?
Weirdly, it seems like that's less likely now. I know it sounds strange, but the rumor mill has gone more quiet on that front, and partly because it appears that Helmut Marko has signed a new contractual agreement with Red Bull. To stay with Red Bull that kind of changed the clauses that were in Max's contract that allowed Max to leave if Helmut wasn't there anymore. Now, that's twofold. One, the extended agreement is a sign that they want Helmut to stay and be part of that team, and they see his value at helping Max stay there. Max is obviously aware of that too and is kind of happy with that happening. But he's unwell and steps down, or if there's something like if he decides that he doesn't want to be there anymore, and it's out of Red Bull's hands. It's not Red Bull getting rid of him. It's to stop it, Red Bull being held to ransom basically by a potential departure like that. So it seems like that agreement would only take place if everyone was happy with where they're at. I'm told there was quite a high-level meeting between Christian Horner and the Red Bull ownership a few weeks ago, I think, I want to say within the last 2 weeks, in where that kind of came together. So it does all seem a little bit more settled on that front. And I think now you're just seeing Max pushing hard, telling the team, let's get it together. But 2026 will be the one. I think he'll stick now. I feel like he's going to stick till 2026, see how things pan out in 26, and then performance-related clauses might open the door for him to go elsewhere if Red Bull are not one of the teams fighting at the front at that stage.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, he's such a motivated, you listen to his interviews over the years. If you've got the best car, that's where you need to be. And the really wise guys get that, and he's looking ahead to Ford. It's going to take time. He's looking ahead to the transition of the new rules. And already this year, they've lost the superiority they've had. And you're right. He's facing right in the face the idea of potentially being beaten this year.
Yeah, they need all the stability they can get going forward, because remember, they're losing Adrian Newey.
Yep.
And they're in turmoil on the young driver front. And as you say, 2026 is coming down the road fast. So, no matter what you may think of Helmut Marko, he's done a lot of good work with that team. And I wouldn't be surprised if even the Christian Horners of the world say, okay, no matter what you like about Helmut or don't like, you can wind him up and send him off in the direction of all these young drivers and get him organizing that. And, hopefully stay out of the way in the Formula One garage while they reorganize to get ready for the big new world in 2026.
Hey, Chris, as we're looking towards the future, can I throw another one in the hat? We've been talking about McLaren and their rise. We've been talking about Mercedes getting back to sort of, competitiveness. Are we looking at another juggernaut on the horizon? Enrico Cardile and Andy Cowell both going to Aston Martin. Are they building a massive army to become another player?
They're trying. Yeah, they're certainly building that structure. They've got some excellent personnel they've brought in. But I think you've seen the way that actually personnel have kind of spread out around this grid now. When you've got someone like Rob Marshall, who was very key to Red Bull's future now at McLaren, you've had a kind of spread of talent that has led to the strengthening of the entire grid. So, I don't see one team, and other teams are saying similar, one team ever now taking a big dominance like we had with Mercedes not that long ago. And even the way that Red Bull were the last couple of years. But even if you look at that, look how quickly that has closed up. Red Bull's dominant spell really started in the middle of 2022. Well, we're 2 years later and it's over. And we've got 4 teams winning races this year. We've got technically McLaren, I think, right now, all round is the quickest package. On certain tracks, that does fluctuate. So, I think what that should do is help Aston get there in that mix. But there's a lot of teams that are aware as well that under these regulations, because of this ceiling that looks like maybe Red Bull have pushed up against and McLaren might find they do too soon, then it's possible for people to catch up and get in the mix pretty quickly. And I know Williams are going to bring a lot of updates to their car later this year that they think will put them right in the mix for points. But that doesn't mean Aston Martin can't bring an upgrade package that works, that puts them in the fight for wins. I genuinely think we just have strength across the board now. And there's no one team that I look at and think they're overly weak, probably outside of Alpine.
And then you've got Audi coming along. We don't know, but they too are going to be maybe.
But they're Audi, and they know how to do motorsport.
Not from the start, but they're going to be a powerhouse, aren't they? Yeah,
right,
exactly. And they're building another team.
There seems to be there's some anxiety over there apparently with them releasing.
What's the skinny on that, as they say in Texas? What happened there, Chris?
Well, I think there just was concern that he wasn't the right man for the job, but that the leadership team that they had at Audi were not quite fitting in the way they wanted to, and everything was being kept a bit separate to maybe protect positions, but also that Mattia Binotto was available. That he has great experience from Ferrari and was highly rated, and they thought, okay, if we're going to make a change, we've got to make it soon so we can still influence the future. But I feel for Andretti because, of course, he's not been able to take that project through to show what he could do. But at the same time, I do then look back at what happened at McLaren, and the willingness for McLaren to let him go instantly and promote Andrea Stella said that spoke volumes, that they were happier with Stella, that they felt maybe Cedar wasn't their guy anymore, having had him for a couple of years. And when that happens, it makes you go, oh, I wonder what they knew that we didn't know.
Yeah.
So when it happens again, I don't know if it's a culture fit or what, but they weren't overly delighted, I don't think. And it's just an awkward situation at that team. I mean, some of their mechanics walking past me on the grid right now, sponsored by Steak and Kick, and they've lost the identity in a sense that they used to have. They're no longer solely Sauber, but they're going to become Audi. But the Audi image is going to be very different to the image the team currently has. There's just such a disconnect there when everyone is focused on being competitive and strong in 2026. And you can kind of see how that's working for most teams up and down the grid. That is a team that looks still unsettled at the wrong time.
Definitely.
Admittedly, the same with Alpine, but those two stand out like a sore thumb. And I think that then ties in, I know we're not really on that topic right now, but with the driver market and Carlos Sainz trying to make his decision, that the two bigger teams that he could go to don't seem to be settled and in the right place, and Williams do, and they're trying to sell him that project. So on that front, I've been hearing that there's growing confidence at Williams that's going to get done and get done soon.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that'd be interesting. I mean, think about that Audi situation. I mean, the slick back, cards close to your chest, Germanic way of doing things at Audi, and they grab Mattia Binotto with the wild hair and the crazy glasses and all those years at Ferrari. Wild. I mean, what a culture clash that's likely to be.
It is, but it's someone with recent knowledge of how to be a front-running Formula One team that developed its own power unit and has high expectations and a lot of resource. So I really do get the synergy there. So I can see why they've gone for that. But I imagine there's a lot of people in that team that are kind of keen to get to 2026 when Audi have full control. And that's when they might feel like they start seeing proper changes taking effect.
Hey, Chris, let's address one more. Kevin Kelly was asking about it, but one more thing that I emailed you and you talked about where this alliance potentially that Adam Cooper talked about with GM and Renault and Andretti and all that. Tell us your take on that.
So, my take is, sadly, for everyone listening in North America, not all that positive on it. I don't see an alliance happening there. I think, there used to be an attempt to get one, didn't there? And that fell apart. And I think that's, again, maybe another reason why the Renault engine department looks like it's going to be closed down from an F1 perspective, because, of course, it's got no customers, so it's not making any money. Financially, it makes no sense. And Alpine has almost been prepped for a potential sale as an independent team, so looking to be more competitive. But then Renault, if it wants to potentially be able to sell the Alpine team in future, and I don't think it's definitely going to do that, but it's trying to put itself in a position where it's easier to. That's why you split the two parts. But then you wouldn't then help another team coming to devalue your own team immediately in the way that everyone was kind of admitting that they were worried about in the past, but it didn't have the direct impact because you didn't see a sale potentially happening for one of those teams at that point. So I think from a selfish point of view for Enstone and the Renault run team, they're not going to want another team on the grid. But GM as well, logistically, I mean, Viri has not been a successful engine department for a long time now. We're talking, 10 years or more since the current generation of power unit. So that doesn't quite make sense. Obviously, having a huge facility that's part owned by Renault still, you can't just split off the engine section because they do Alpine other motorsports and other technologies in there that you'd have to work within it. And that's the other side of the pond. That's very hard to do. It didn't make sense to me. I also have spoken to contacts at Formula One who don't feel losing Renault would really lead them to be much more eager to get GM in. They're already happy and want GM to come in as a full supplier if they want to, but it doesn't really change their stance on the new team situation. They're open to it in 2028 if something comes together and is agreed and the teams are on board and the sport's in a good place. And I do still think that has potential. But as is flagged, I think, in the Adam Cooper kind of column, where he kind of suggests it, I think, and then realistically goes, but realistically, it can't happen. He's just kind of like, wouldn't it be nice? He does say, though, that the entry period that they were talking about with the FIA tender was 25, 26, or 27. So when you look at 28, that's not actually part of that, and you might have to restart that process or get approval again from the FIA. I don't actually think that'd be a problem. If F1 were open to it, if GM wanted to come in, I don't think the FIA would then go, no, we're not going to do that. I think they're actually in a better place collectively, Formula One and the FIA, that they would work together on that sort of thing. So I don't see that being an issue if GM and Andretti do manage to get their own entry. But it just doesn't feel like it's moving in a positive direction at the moment from my perspective.
Yeah, I asked both Jonathan and Bob before we went on air, and they both said pretty much the same thing. They didn't think so. All right, guys, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to move towards today's race and get you ready, including the grid from Mr. Bob Varsha. Back after these messages. Hey, Bob, I'm going to be driving through Atlanta on Tuesday, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I say through Atlanta. I probably won't go through Atlanta on the way there, but on the way back.
Yeah, if you're smart, you won't.
Yeah.
I was about to say, there's a few thousand people still at Hatfield who were doing just that, but they're still there.
So I'm taking my daughter back to Georgia, for college.
Because you couldn't get a flight.
Well, no, because she wants her car this year. So we're going to drive her up there. But then we're going to fly back, and our flight is on Delta. So we'll see if we need to change it before then because of the
I do love that the one guy they interviewed was Charles Bartley looking for his golf club.
He needs to lose his golf club.
He was like, I can't find my golf club.
Have you seen his swing? Oh,
yeah, it's really scary.
Oh my God. Karen and I took a week's vacation up in New England last week, and we did have one flight canceled, but that was okay. I had to spend an extra day in Nantucket. But I've flown several times since then, including this weekend when I was up in Greensboro, North Carolina at the GAA auction, and no problems whatsoever.
Good.
Yeah.
So let's give a shout out to all
Atlanta airports chaos.
Our friends at CrowdStrike, because
yes,
I mean, look, where the bank that I work at and Casey here all said that
they fixed it.
They fixed it. They got it going. At the bank, I send my laptop. 5 minutes later, they said, "Yeah, it's ready." And what did you say, Casey? All the IT guys are saying everybody makes a mistake, and they got it fixed. Yeah. So,
and it wasn't. They're basically
wasn't a breach.
Cybersecurity. It wasn't a breach of their security.
It was just a code update thing that it's going to. It's almost like it's inevitable. It's going to happen to somebody. But man, it does show you the depth and breadth of CrowdStrike's company.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's see. All right, coming back.
Hi, this is Gene Haas, and this is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back. Where will you be on Labor Day weekend? I know where you'll be, Jonathan.
I know where I'll be.
You'll be at Circuit of the Americas with me, because World Endurance Championship is coming back. The Lone Star Le Mans is coming back to Austin, Texas, and you need to be here because it is a blast. It is a super fun race.
Did you get the goosebumps I did when you walk out? Because they were testing it, Coda, private test. When you actually see those Jota Porsches up close, or the BMWs?
Well, you know what? When I was driving down there for the test yesterday and I could hear the cars, that's when the goosebumps came.
Yeah.
And I pull in the paddock and all the cars running around, all the cars in the garages getting there for testing. And by the way, they were like, no phones, don't pull anything out.
I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, they were doing testing. But yeah, man, it's amazing. And World Endurance Championship now has tons of OEMs now. They've got Alpine, Aston Martin, BMW, Cadillac, Corvette, Ferrari, Ford, Lamborghini, Lexus, McLaren, Porsche, Peugeot, Toyota. I may not even gotten them all, but...
Well, then there's the one-make wonders, the Italians.
Yeah.
What is that, Isotta?
Yep, we got the Lamborghini Super Trofeo and the Ford Mustang Challenge.
That's the one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that manufacturer, yes. But also the support races, the Lamborghini Super Trofeo and the Ford Mustang Challenge. They have a huge fan zone to enjoy the car displays and entertainment. It does not get better than this. You can see all the action at the Circuit of the Americas on Labor Day weekend, starting Friday, August 30th, and culminating with the Lone Star Le Mans on Sunday, September 1st.
And don't forget Mustangs and Lamborghinis.
Yep, and you can get your tickets at thecircuit.com. That's Coda's website. All right,
Cowboy
Chris.
hats for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Chris Medland, can you paint us a picture from what you see right now as we get ready for the Belgian Grand Prix?
I absolutely can. I've take myself quite a long way back on the grid here because I want to speak to Ao Komatsu, and I'm hopefully going to get to him in a sec, but he's running between the two Haas cars, which is lining up 16th and 17th on the grid today. But 16th, Nico Hülkenberg, is lining up at the finish line. I think we discussed this. Was it Barcelona, where it's similar? But everyone ahead of 16th starts ahead of the finish line, so they technically don't complete the full race distance for when they cross the line at the end of the race.
I like it.
Because they're ahead of it. They complete that full lap. But I was actually stood, because of where I'm stood, I was stood behind Lance Stroll's car as that was fired up by Aston Martin. I can tell you, I jumped out my skin because it backfired. And I was far too close to the back of that car. So I'm glad this is radio and not TV, because you'd have seen me absolutely leap into the air. But then Haas did their fire up, and that all went fine. But I've got Ao now, who's just, I think, listening to some of the prep that's going on at Haas. But Ao, 16th and 17th today, but this is a Sunday circuit where a lot can happen in the race. What are you targeting?
Obviously, we're trying to make a progress. And then our car didn't work very well on the inters. That's the theme of this year, to be honest. So it's a very different condition. So we want to just concentrating on getting a car balance right at this track temperature. And if we can do that, I think we can make some progress. So yeah, we try to get as close to the point as possible, for sure.
I was going to say, and is it when you factor in your simulations and things that there's a lot of unknowns at this circuit? Is it the points are realistic if we get a bit of chaos?
If we get a bit of chaos, yeah, I think realistically we're talking about P12, P13, but you never know at this circuit. So we just got to concentrate on what we can do, get the balance right, and then execute a good race, and then see what happens.
Now, I know you've got to get out of here quickly after the race. So I'm going to ask you something more general right now, even though we're on the grid, and that's you made a big announcement this week, Esteban Ocon joining the team. How excited are you to have your lineup finalised and work with him next year?
No, really excited. As I always said, our target was to sign a driver who's got proven track record, but still young enough and hungry for more success, and then have a great work ethic. Push the team, push each other to make a progress. And I believe we got that in Esteban, so very excited.
And when kind of did all that talk with him start? Because I guess, you've got two experienced drivers here, but one of them is going to stake. The other one, we don't know what's going to happen with him. Like, how long were you in this process of working out who you wanted to bring in?
I think the whole process started pretty early, right? I can't remember exactly, but by race 3, we've been talking with quite a few drivers, just because of how the season happened with Lewis's announcement before the season. Everybody started talking early, so that's how it was.
Well, I imagine, though, today you don't want him doing too well because he's starting in the top 10 and could be on some points in that Alpine.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, he's done a good job yesterday. In the you can clearly see that they kept a low drag car, and then to deliver that performance in the qualifying was quite impressive. So at least it showed that we signed a good driver.
Yeah, and that was the driver news. Any other news to come in the rest of the season? What's the outlook for the rest of 2024 for Haas?
I let you know when I can say it, yeah.
Oh, well, I'll keep my phone on over the summer break. Hey, thanks for your time.
Great stuff, Chris. I'm right in saying that they work together. If
anyone doesn't get that hint,
go on.
Sorry, I was going to say, if anyone doesn't get that hint, there's definitely been discussions with Toyota about some sort of technical partnership for the F1 team. Nothing in terms of power units or anything that major, but there's just been discussions about how they could work together, and I think those discussions are ongoing, which is why he was laughing at that question.
That's interesting, yeah. And I think Esteban and he worked together at Lotus, if my small brain is still working.
Spot on. They actually raced together in a charity karting race even before that, when he was a very young driver, and they were teammates in the charity karting race. So he knew him from that loosely. And then he was the engineer for the first test that Ocon did 10 years ago in a Lotus. So that was actually part of Ao's own progress and development, that he got put in charge of a car for a test, and it was Esteban's car. So they go back quite a long way.
And they went to kindergarten together, apparently.
It must have been quite a funny sight watching those guys share a cart, because Ocon is about a head taller than Ao.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, he said then he wasn't quite so tall. He hadn't jumped up quite then. But
yeah, he's kid
I'm going to jump in again. I've got Lauren Meckies in front of me, and Lauren, you came very close to Q3 yesterday. It looked like Daniel had the pace to get there. I know Yuki's car was always going to be set up for the race, but was it a bit disappointing not to make the top 10?
Yeah, it was actually. I think the car was fast yesterday. The car and Daniel were both fast yesterday. So, yes, we had the potential to go to Q3. I think it was in the top 10 in most stations. It's part of the games when you have, slightly damp condition. It's very much dependent on how well you pick the track when you are doing your fast lap. So it's okay. The most important thing is that on a track like that, on tricky conditions, we even in those setup conditions, we have the pace to be in Q3, which is great. Now, we start behind quite a few competitors today, so we'll have to take a bit more risk to find our way around.
Do you think you can do that here, though? It is a track you can overtake and where strange things can happen?
We think we'll have the pace to fight. And then if we just sit behind these 3 or 4 cars that we think we can fight with, nothing will happen. So we'll have to be a bit more aggressive.
And what can Yuki do? He took a power unit penalty here, starting at the very back. You already knew that at the start of the weekend. Is it a bit of damage limitation, or is there something creative you can do with him?
No, as you said, we always knew it was going to be difficult starting from the back, but it's part of the game these days. Yes, we'll have to be a bit even more aggressive with Yuki if we want to have any chance. There have been quite a few crazy races here in the past. So it's still, we think there is still quite a few things up to grab.
An aggressive Yuki. We're going to look forward to that today. Thank you.
Yeah, that'll be fun to see. Aggressive Yuki.
Yeah, especially on a track like this. Wow.
You should see him come out the pit lane.
Hey, Mr. Varsha, you want to try to get through the grid? That should mean that Chris will get another interview, but let's try to do it.
Well, that's why we do it.
Yeah.
Well, I can promise you that I just got turned down for one by Bruno Faman as I walked past him.
He's old news.
This is going to be his last race in charge of the Alpine Formula One team, and I think it's most likely that he's going to be replaced by Ollie Oakes, who currently is the team principal of High Tech in Formula 2. But yeah, Bruno then taking the opportunity to be like, well, I'm leaving, so I don't need to talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Gosh, that's the exact opposite of what I would think you would want to do. Yeah, I'm leaving, so open that mic. I got some things.
Well, yeah,
to say.
there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, be that as it may. All right, I'm racing Chris now. Here we go. Row 1, P1, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, who was handed the first starting position by Max Verstappen's 10th place engine penalty. It won't count as a pole 1 statistically, but it's a pole start for Ferrari's team leader. P2, Sergio Perez, Red Bull. Where you been, Checo? A clutch performance. Checo's down to his last chance to prove he deserves to stay as a teammate to Verstappen. His last start this high was 9 races ago in China. Row 2, Lewis Hamilton is P3 in the Mercedes. Better than the 7-time world champion expected coming in, he said later. The Silver Arrows know their job today, since they don't quite have the speed to win, is to stay as close to the front as possible and gather up points. Next to him, Lando Norris in the first of the McLarens. By nearly a second off Verstappen's pace in Q3. The Miami winner says he hasn't been driving his best this weekend, but the cars were quick on the dry Friday, and you heard Max early in the show saying McLaren may be the best of the field. Row 3, Oscar Piastri in the second McLaren, just 46 thousandths of a second behind his teammate, and the Aussie agreed that they are coming up short here. That's keeping your light under the bushel. The orange cars need a good plan, a mistake-free race, and some luck, and they could pick up another victory this year. P6, George Russell in the second Mercedes, another driver feeling hopeful of scoring points given the superiority of the Red Bulls and the McLarens and the apparent resurgence of Sergio Perez. Row 4, Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari starts P7, mystified after qualifying in tricky conditions, but the Spaniard clearly expects more, especially after the lap his teammate put in to reach the front row 0.7 of a second quicker than the Spaniard. P8, Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin, 0.3 of a second off the Ferrari. That's one of the bigger gaps among drivers who are sharing a row. Clearly, the Aston has yet to find the combination that worked so well early in the season. Row 5, P9, Esteban Ocon in the Alpine. Confirmed this week, as you heard, as a Haas driver for the next 2 seasons. Alpine split their setups on their 2 cars, as I mentioned earlier, which is a good way to hedge your bets when the track goes from wet to dry and back again. Maybe. Doesn't sound like that's going to happen today, but you never know. P10, Alex Albon in the Williams, despite missing Q3 by just 0.3 thousandths of a second. The Williams-Mercedes combination has never lacked for top speed, and there could be some sorely needed points in store today. Row 6, P11, Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. Now, weirdly, as I mentioned, this is the 3rd year in a row that the world champion has been quickest in qualifying at Spa, but was penalized down the grid for power unit changes. But the Dutchman has won from the back here before in Belgium and has the speed to do it again. P12, Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. One very unhappy Frenchman after qualifying. Gasly says the team is still coming up short on strategy as well. Got to think that's easy when it seems there's a a different voice on the radio every week. Row 7, P13, Danny Ricciardo in the RB. The soap opera continues at the Red Bull Junior team, but Danny seems to show flashes of his old self from time to time as he tries to stay in F1. Maybe he'll do it today. P14, Valtteri Bottas in the Sauber. As we mentioned, the respected CEO Andrea Seidel and chairman Oliver Hoffman were dumped this week in favor of ex-Ferrari boss Mattia Binotto. We'll see whether the veteran Bottas can put all the hubbub aside and score the team's first points of the season. Row 8, P15, Lance Stroll in the second Aston Martin, who crashed while testing the conditions in the wet Saturday morning, but the team was able to get the car back together in time for the Canadian to reach Q2. P16, Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas. It may be hard to think of the American car starting 16th to be out of place, but in the hands of Hülkenberg, that's a measure of the success he's had this season in qualifying. But still, the Haas hasn't shown the legs on this long sweeping circuit. Row 9, P17, Kevin Magnussen in the second Haas. Ditto for the second example of the MoneyGram cars, although this is more like where we're used to seeing K-Mag, quite frankly. P18, Logan Sargent in the Williams. Will this be the end of the road for the lone American driver in the series? I think not, personally, given the way he's been driving lately. Row 10, P19, Zhou Guanyu in the Sauber. It would have been another caboose on the field start for Zhou, if not for the demotion of the second RB, and that would be Yuki Tsunoda starting P20, timed in 18th, but automatically went to the back for taking a comprehensive set of new power unit components. So there's your lineup.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bob Varsha. And we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we will be just about 12 or 13 minutes from the start of the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa. Stick with us. Back after these messages. Nice job, Mr. Varsha.
Yeah, very nice.
And good timing because the national anthem is going on, apparently. And
I was cross-eyed while I was writing
that. Well, hey, where were you doing an auction? Did you say?
Yeah, in Greensboro, North Carolina. I highly recommend it. It's called the GAA Classic Cars at the Palace. The Palace being this huge building that houses the entire event. So we got there Wednesday and Thursday. It rained like hell outside, but it didn't matter because we were entirely enclosed. They get great cars. It's a weird kind of North Carolina, real southern atmosphere.
Well,
a lot of twangs.
Did you bid and pick up a vehicle that you've been lusting after for decades?
No, but there was all kinds of value there. Corvettes were dominant at this edition, but they get everything. You know, I tend to like weird cars. You know, Corvairs, Nash Metropolitans, stuff like that, and they're always there at the GAA. They always have this kind of stuff. About
I love
750 cars. They'll probably be. Go ahead.
I just love pointing out Corvairs to young Porsche fans. What do we got? About a minute, Casey? Yeah, about a minute, Chris.
I might jump off and do a record because Zach's free right now.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'll record. He's having a chat. If I disappear, that's why. Otherwise, I'll stay. Come to me straight away.
Okay. I was just gonna say, Bob, I love pointing out Corvairs to young.
Yeah, I actually sent Zach over there.
Oh, Corvairs to young Porsche fans.
Knowing it would keep Chris off the mic.
And tell them that America produced a flat air-cooled 6 rear engine in the 60s. And they're like, what are you talking about?
True.
Yep. They didn't.
Most maligned cars ever.
Unsafe at any speed.
So who produced the Corvair?
Chevrolet.
Hello, I'm Jenny Gow from BBC F1. You are listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Welcome back. Casey bringing us back with some funky.
Hell yeah.
Oh, Chris Medland. Hey, buddy, go. We got you. Go with your mic.
Yeah, I am here at McLaren. I'm watching Zach Brown just have a bit of a chat with Oscar Piastri, actually, before Oscar jumps in the car. And I'm going to see if I can have a word with him once he's given the final pep talk, actually. I was well positioned, but it turns out his driver's more important than me. Who'd have thought that? So I'll wait and see at which point I'm allowed to jump in here. But obviously he's talking to the latest race winner. So that must be quite cool to be able to say. But Oscar just he's wearing one of those cool jackets. Actually, it's not that hot on the grid. We've got all the engines firing up around us right now. It's not that warm, but it is. The sun is out, so it's warmer than it's been at any point this weekend. But showed you how keen the drivers are to keep their body temp at the optimal temperature. But even in these conditions, he's wearing one of the cool jackets. He's putting on his balaclava and his earpieces in so you can hear on the team radio. But Zach is still focused very much on the driver right now. So I do apologise for filling for so long. But you're all used to me doing this. My awkward
we love it.
Ramblings on the middle of the grid.
Yeah, no worries.
I believe Zach wants to say something before Oscar gets in the car. So I think that's why I'm being held at arm's length right now.
What? Something like you're
Oscar's
coming
trainer,
second today?
Tim Keedle is. Well, these are discussions I'd love to know. He's starting behind his teammate right now, but that was the same case, wasn't it, in Hungary, where the start is where Oscar got him. But of course, last year Oscar was only got to turn one in the Grand Prix.
Casey's going to get you one of those microphones that it's got the little satellite-looking dish thing where you can point it straight at the conversation. We can hear them.
Well, Netflix are doing that kind of little bit of work where they've got their boom mic in to try and capture anything and everything. I'm not sure at which point I can interrupt here because, Zach is very keen to obviously say something to Oscar. So I'm just going to make sure that I can grab him straight afterwards as the helmet goes on for Piastri.
Well, that's the end of that conversation.
And although, there you go. He wanted to give him a big hug, and he was waiting to give him a big hug, and now he's going to go do the same to Lando, I think. But Zach, you're starting a little bit out of position, I feel, for the pace of your car. How crucial is the start of this race going to be to try and get to the front?
I think just having a clean start is what's most important. I feel like we got a good race car, a lot of good race cars around us, but we should be all right.
And I just saw you there. Is this a bit of a ritual of yours? Do you want to give both drivers a handshake before they get going?
I always do. Always do. I'd play some sort of bet with them.
Okay, well, we know one is an orange mohawk for Oscar's win last week. What are the instructions for your drivers right now today? Because they're starting alongside each other again.
Go fun and go to the front.
We like the sound of that. So, is it another 1-2 on the cards today, or do you think Max Verstappen's a big threat?
Oh, I think he's definitely a big threat, but I think we're a big threat too.
Well, good luck. Thanks for your time.
Cheers.
Yeah.
They're a big fit.
That was interesting that Zach went public after the mess in Hungary, saying, "Well, we'll never do that again."
Yeah, I missed that race. I wasn't with you, but I've since spent this week going over, both watching the race myself and reading everything up and listening to all the podcasts. And it was a monumental mistake. They didn't need to do that. They were going to get first and second anyway.
Exactly.
And they've lost 7 points in the championship.
I would disagree with you there, Johnny, because they finished 1-2. They didn't lose any points in the championship. You could say Lando did, but that's what I mean. And you ruin your other driver's confidence.
Yeah,
because
okay.
Obviously, Oscar didn't have a win.
As always, you're right, and I'm wrong.
They sacrificed him earlier. No, not at all. It's my opinion, but I like to fight back on this show because I'm not in the studio with you guys to actually thrash it out so often.
But you're right. That is the other side of it.
I'm also now stalking. Yeah, and look, it was a tough decision, but at the end of the day, a 1-2 is a great result for McLaren. It's a good problem to have, and Zach Brown admits, actually, I spoke to him earlier today, that they've got to go through these situations to try and learn a bit more.
Right.
Now, I'm going to see if I don't get run over here.
It's a long time since they've had that.
Wolf's thoughts on today's race in a sec.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it certainly is.
Yeah.
And they've just got to learn from each time. But if you're learning from a 1-2 result, then that's not the worst thing in the world. So, yeah, they're. I think they're pretty calm with it. I'm just going to see if I'm very quickly. Toto, starting here with Lewis, third place. With Max out of the picture right now, are you in the fight for the win today?
I know. I think Max is going to be here quicker than we think, and it's all about tire degradation. If we can manage that, we're in the mix.
In the mix for the win, you say, or just the podium? As Christian Horner, I think, just pinched his ass.
Yeah, that's not right? I don't think we're in the mix for the win, but maybe a podium.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. I've got to get off the grid now. So,
if the stewards saw that, was that in the rules?
Yeah.
That's an HR violation.
I've got to get off the grid. So
Pre-Spa
I'm going to come and ask you about it after the race.
Well, you know,
an ass pinching live
on the grid at Spa. I just know where the rules follow that. I don't know.
It's an HR violation.
Well, it kind of depends on where it happens, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, right. If I was Christian Horner, I'd be careful who's ass I'm pitching.
I think boss-to-boss ass pinching is actually
Toto Wolff said something. And the last time Toto Wolff said that's so not right, when it was involving Christian Horner, was back in Abu Dhabi 2021. So are they on comparable levels? That was he took that one very. He did take that one very well. To be fair, that was all
Right.
fun and games between the two of them.
And no rain.
Yeah, it's good to see they can do that.
No rain, no chance of rain at all. Beautiful sunshine, bit of cloud around, so the track temperature might fluctuate a bit as the cloud cover comes over the top. But no, lovely, warm and sunny.
Wow.
Yeah, that'll affect degradation.
Yes. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Woohoo.
Yeah. And we
Yeah.
haven't mentioned this yet, but we haven't really talked. We talked all about Checo yesterday in the post qualifying. We haven't hardly mentioned him today, but can we get our 8th winner of the season? Checo's in the right place. He's in second, which at Spa is the right place. And he needs it. We talked about how relaxed he was yesterday.
Yeah.
Have you seen him, Chris, today? Have you walked by him or anything?
I actually haven't. I went up to his car during the national anthem actually to try and find Christian Horner, and he wasn't there at the time. But admittedly, I'd not long been at Max Verstappen's car much further back, and I hadn't seen Christian there either. So I think he just was late to the grid. But I was interested to see the dynamic. So I think Christian spent most of his time on the grid with Max. I still think that's eggs in the basket there. So
Sure.
I still think it's a big day for Checo. If he can win this race, it's very hard to make a change over the summer. Some team bosses think it could well happen. Some think it couldn't. From what I'm hearing, I think there's every chance it does if he doesn't have a big result today. And I think a big result has to be at least top 3, if not the win.
Yeah, I agree. And Marco has come out in the press today saying that they will be discussing Perez's future on Monday.
Oh.
By the way, got to say this, Andy P.
Yeah,
Stewards have noted the incident on the grid.
Have noticed Toto's ass.
All I can think of with regard to thinking of Checo last year in Mexico City, where he just went sailing off the track at turn 1, just way too much speed going in. I just pray he doesn't do something like that today.
Well,
knowing what's at stake.
He was quoted as saying, "I haven't forgotten how to drive heading into today." So hopefully he has not. Yeah. Wouldn't that be a fun headline if Checo were to win this? I would love. There's so many different things I'd like about that headline, but sure. We're about 2.5 minutes. Shall we go ahead and get our predictions? Shall we start with you, Mr. Varsha?
No. No, I'll take to prove that I haven't given this a whole lot of thought. I'm going to say Leclerc, Verstappen, Norris.
Johnny Green.
I'm going to say Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen.
All right, I'll give you the last word, Chris. I'm going to say Checo, Verstappen, and Leclerc.
Wow.
Interesting. I'm going different to all of you, which is quite fun for once. I'm going to go Norris, Verstappen, Perez.
Ooh.
That's a good one. Yeah. We still have
softies.
We still have a little bit of time left.
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Just to bring up that Perez thing, actually, we were just talking about there, and you said Mexico. I have had it jokingly suggested by someone involved with one of the drivers who could be in the frame to replace him if there is a change made. Jokingly asked if I know of any security companies in Mexico City, because can you imagine being the Red Bull driver who replaces Sergio Perez in August if that happens, and then going to Mexico City later this year, where he's absolutely worshipped? Because nothing seems to suggest that Red Bull would keep him on the grid in that case, that it would be they'd make a change completely, and either it would be Liam Lawson going in there or Ricciardo stepping up and Liam Lawson going in at RB. So today's a huge day for Checo. And to be honest, in many ways, I'm with you with what you said, John. Wouldn't it be great to see him win and really show he's still got it? Because the other teams know it's in there, but the fact that he's not bringing it out so regularly is what's keeping this Constructors' Championship certainly really, really tasty.
Yeah, it really is. There's so much to that headline, but we'll see. And that's the beautiful thing about Spa. We just don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. There's going to be tons of passing. We know that. It's Spa, high speed, all of that. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Of course, stay right here for the race and stay here for the post-race show, because we'll be back for our full 1-hour post-race show to wrap everything up. Thank you very much.